All right, we are live. So, hey, all you crazy sci fi and fantasy fans, it's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just three nerdy veterans geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. So, without further ado, let's get into this episode. All right, Tim. So, in case people don't know who you are, Mr. Tim C. Taylor, author extraordinaire, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks. So I am Tim C. Taylor. I'm a science fiction writer of the British and Pew Pew Persuasion. And I am the author of, I think it's 21 published novels so far. The most likely thing people will have heard me from might be Four Horsemen Universe, Chimera Company, or The Human Legion.
We know which one I liked first. All right. So how did we first find them? Well, I actually, and I said this before, so I won't belabor the point. I was looking for stuff to read on my Kindle because I had recently gotten one, and it was giving me the ability to read back after a head injury because you can magnify the heck out of the print, which is a glorious thing. And I found his book because it was on sale, the first book, Marine Cadet. And then I said, I kind of like this stuff. I didn't know, because I grew up in a glut in the 90s where if you wanted Mill SF, it was, if you, in new stuff, it's pretty much only Star Wars or Star Trek fanfic or real fiction, like the published novels, but there wasn't a whole lot of stuff and the indie movement hadn't happened. And I'm like, oh, people still write this kind of stuff. This is cool. So I stalked him, as you do, to his Facebook page. And we sort of, or not, it was your website at the time. And you had a
Yeah,
forum on there that I got heavily involved in. And I pestered you a lot and said, you really should write this story and this story and this story. And
you
finally,
did.
you gave me a contract and said, shut up already. And the rest is history.
Yeah.
I think you just got sick of hearing from me.
Yeah, it was the only way to keep it quiet.
I've heard that about myself before. Hence
Yeah.
the podcast. All right. So since we've had you on the podcast several times, so I don't feel like we
Sure.
need to get into who is Tim Taylor questions
No,
that we
no.
normally do. But this is the Blasters and Blades podcast, so we cannot let you escape without the religion questions. So, Black Hawk Down, Fury, or Lone Survivor?
Black Hawk Down, such a good film.
Excellent movie. I think it did an excellent job of capturing the chaos of a urban battlefield.
Yeah.
But we are polytheistic over here because we're filthy degenerates. So Braveheart, the 300, or the Alamo?
The 300. Totally over the top. Great abs.
Yeah, I wasn't sure you were even allowed to say, being a proper British Englishman from the United Kingdom, that you were allowed to say Braveheart. They might like revoke your card and stop letting you drink tea at noon. It'd be bad.
Well, if I was Scottish and British, then I might be different. But yeah, difficult to watch if you're English.
Yeah, I can imagine with Longshanks being the bad guy. I imagine if the English told it, the story would be slightly different.
Of course.
All right, and because I got bored on a Google search and found all these, 13 Hours, Gallipoli, or Zulu?
Zulu.
Excellent movie. And in case you missed it, dear listener, today, instead of just sci-fi and fantasy, we went for the unifying theme of heroic last stands. And if you can't tell from the cover that's gracing your screen, or if you're listening, today we'll be conducting a brief episode where we dive into the world of anthologies and short stories. So we're going to interview Tim about his contribution to the undervalued work of short fiction. And today we have On Deadly Ground on deck. It's stories of desperate last stands from today's top sci-fi authors. And you can't get much topper than higher. Yeah, I write words, I promise. I just have editors. You can't get much better than Tim C. Taylor. So let's see what this anthology is all about, shall we? The movie trailer voice, don't worry, guy, I'm not taking your job this week. But across 1,000 battlefields and 1,000,000 wars, there's always the question, what do you do when all the chips are down the table? Do you run? Try to find salvation in the arms of an easy peace, or do you stand and fight? Send your enemies into whatever hole they crawled out of. On Deadly Ground has 10 stories handling that exact question. Each character faces the impossible in different ways, but all will be tested before the day is done. Can they earn a heroic victory amongst the endless eternity of space, or are they doomed to fall into obscurity? And as much as I stumbled over that, you wouldn't know that I actually wrote that blurb, but I apologize for nothing. All right, Tim, what was your story in this collection called?
It's called Time Dogs. And yeah, before I get into that, I have to say if you're just hearing this, then it's just, you're missing out on a wonderful cover. Jamie Glover, I think, was the artist. It really is a cover to be proud to be within its embrace in the pages inside. It's excellent.
Yeah, he was the one who I was talking to him when we were doing the covers for all the anthology series, and he was the one that said, because I told him, you obviously you want it to look like the covers fit in the genres that they're in, but you definitely want them to stand out. And he goes, just do retro. Everybody loves retro, right? That's what all the hip kids are saying. And he was joking, but I'm like, blimey, it's brilliant. So I was saying blimey because he's British too, so I was trying to to get in the headspace.
Yeah, we appreciate the gesture.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I say brilliant. And so we did that. And so when I gave him this cover, because he had already done 3 at that point, he had 4 anthologies for me, and he said, well, what's the inspiration this time? And I'm like, I don't know, Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica, and Star Trek. If they had a baby, what would that look like? And he's like, I got just the thing.
Yes, you're right.
He made this cover, and he's like, I hope you don't get sued, but you'll probably get hate mail. And I'm like, I can deal with that.
Yeah.
And so, and the other funny thing is, most of the anthology titles, like, he just plays around with it and throws a title on there as a placeholder. And most of the time, I actually like his title better than whatever I had. So we just go with it. So
that's great.
I can't even remember what the original title I gave him was, but he didn't like it. So, I think it was like Forlorn Hope, which is a like archaic expression for a last stand. And this was totally better. So thank you, Jamie Glover. Most excellent. And I can't wait till he starts making covers again. So, all right. We did promise a quick episode, so I'll stop yabbering. Can you give us the synopsis for your short story?
Sure. So there's a last stand of humanity. It's actually around the orbit of Saturn. Alien invaders. And we're not going to win. So there's a sort of military science fiction story and the idea of the people caught within this last stand. And it's that sort of story then crashes into a completely different genre and a different story, which is of these sort of rather roguish time travelers who are being backstabbed by their boss and sent to do a job that wasn't what was in the job description. So you've got 2 completely different sort of genres and two different teams, different sort of mindsets, and then they've got to find a way to work together. That's Time Dogs. Okay.
So can you tell us about the main character in this collection? Or this
story,
I should say?
Well, it actually is framed by a character who's I think they're a petty officer in the Earth Navy, but the most sort of dramatic character is Steve Stiletto Caldwell, who is, how can you put it? He's a man who's come from an era where he's not troubled by niceties of politeness, and he doesn't want to be there. He likes his drink and his ladies, and he doesn't want to do the right thing. He just wants to get paid, essentially. So he's really the driving force and the most interesting character to watch. And at the end, he, we'll have to wait and see, but he has a key part to play in the story.
Okay. And what was the inspiration for this short story?
Well, it was actually a tryout, I guess, for a series that I was considering writing, the Time Dogs idea. So I like the idea of mashing together a kind of traditional military science fiction idea for a story with this sort of time-traveling shenanigans sort of hitting it head on, almost by accident. But the idea of the time travel thing, I'd written, in fact, my first 2 published novels are called The Reality War. They're actually set in the whole Human Legion universe, but I've not talked about them very much because they weren't the same sort of style. But I basically rewrote them, or at least heavily revised them over the summer and re-released them. And it's a kind of story where it sets off. This is the Reality War, where it's like a witness protection program, but instead of in a safe house, it's in the past. But somebody who's running this witness protection program, he alters the past, and then there are huge ramifications. Basically, got to try and fix it while being in this sort of dystopian future that he's created. So that's the sort of a genre where you make a change in the past and it causes enormous problems. But I wanted to twist that around and say, well, you can go back to the past and you can have a good time, and it doesn't matter. So you can go and, put all your money on red, or you can, if you want to punch a Nazi, for example, well, you can go and have a tourist attraction where you go and do that sort of thing for real. Or you can, all sorts of stuff you can do. And it doesn't matter. You can just have fun and do whatever you like in the past, and it doesn't matter. Or at least that's how it appears at first. So it's like a complete reversal of the, oh my goodness, I've damaged the timeline kind of idea. So that's the thinking behind the whole sort of Time Dogs series. So I had to go writing this story for the anthology, and I enjoyed the characters and I enjoyed the way it worked. So since then, I've started work on a novel, which features some of the same characters, but it's set a bit earlier on. In fact, I might try and if I carry on with this, well, I will carry on with this. I may well try and take this story and work some of it into several novels down the line, so it isn't just a standalone thing. It actually will fit in with the wider picture.
Nice. So you answered that you said that your story fits into the Human Legion universe. More broadly speaking, so can you give us the Reader's Digest of that if they're not familiar?
Well, no, that's the Reality Wars. That's something I worked on in the summer that sparked the idea. But no, this one is completely separate. There is no connection. Although the thing about Reality Wars and timelines and stuff, if you really wanted to down the line, I'm sure I can manufacture a connection and link them all up. Like Asimov did with his stories at the end. So perhaps when I'm in my 70s, it will all join up. But no, not at the moment.
So then, can you give us a synopsis of what you're going to do with Time Dog Wars? Like, if you were going to give the Reader's Digest sort of elevator pitch, I don't even know if Reader's Digest is a thing. Maybe the kids won't catch that reference. But no. If you were going to give us the synopsis or like a summary of the universe that is the Time Dogs.
Yeah, so it's set in the future, and it's an idea that you can go back in the past and you can do whatever you like, and it doesn't matter. So the Time Dogs is one of a number of organizations that do missions in the past for money, basically. So somebody's recruited they're dying on a battlefield. They're recruited into the Time Dogs, and then they're sent around all these various places. So it's I to sort of get in the mood for it, I reread the Dresden Files from Jim Butcher. It's kind of like that, rather more than the Human Legion books, in the sense that each one is a separate adventure. There will be connections and things will move, but it's less arc driven, and you don't really have to read it in a particular order quite so much. So it's having fun in the past, but in the background you will find that there are various problems are revealing themselves, and there's lots of bad things to do with actually Time Dogs itself in terms of who runs it. But that will be several books down the line.
Is that something you're going to publish yourself, or are you shopping that around to publishers?
At the moment, I'm still writing. Well, actually, it's on hold at the moment. I'll write something else, but I'm going to get at least a couple of books together, make sure it's working, and then see what I'm going to do. So I may well try and pitch it through some publishers first, and if they don't like it, well, then I'll do it myself. Okay.
So what subgenres of fiction do you think your story would? Obviously it's Space Fleet by the cover, but were there any other subgenres you think this story fit into?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's the time travel, so it's like a mashup. So I mean, the way I like to do sort of mashup ideas is you've got ideas that make sense from or key to more than one subgenre, and you respect those, but then you find ways that you can put them together and add something new. So it is both military science fiction, and it respects that sort of tradition, and it's sort of time travel adventure, and it puts those two together. And hopefully, if I've done my work well, it adds something new to create time travel military science fiction, if you like, which is something you can only get by combining those two together.
So what is it about the time travel subgenre that appeals to you, since this is your second sort of series and foray into that space?
Yeah. I think it allows you to sort of play around with what ifs. I guess really what attracts me to writing fantastic fiction is a whole what if thing, and with time travel you can do an awful lot that's difficult to do otherwise, and allows you to some areas of your interest in history, such as I am, that you can go and explore. In fact, explore the complexities and things where no one's quite sure why certain things happened. Well, you can explain why things happen, because you can fill in the gaps that historians don't know. So I guess it's a mix of what ifs and wish fulfillment.
Do you have a favorite era of history to study?
Well, yeah. Well, so far in the story, but in the on Deadly Ground anthology, they're going back in time, but it's still in our future. But in the novel that I'm writing, there is Waterloo, as in the Battle of Waterloo. I've been there, but the characters arrived there in 1848, quite a few years later. But they go around some of the places where I've actually been. So that's an interesting period, 19th century. Lots of change all over the world, but particularly in Europe. Also they visit Germany in the 1930s, early 30s, which is quite a disturbing but quite an interesting time as well.
Okay. And then what about the space fleet and more broadly military sci-fi? What is it about that appeals to you?
Well, I said earlier on that I really like the cover. So, whatever the reason why, probably watching too many episodes of Captain Kirk when I was a small lad, having, ships flying around what looks like it could almost be a trench in a larger sort of, like a space ball or something, that they're flying down. It's just exciting to look at. I don't necessarily try and rationalise why that is, but it's probably all the things that I saw and read when I was a kid. So it's exciting to start with. But military science fiction in general, military fiction, it's a way of raising the stakes and forcing characters to make choices, and to the way they interact becomes quite intense and an interesting angle on humanity. So yeah, the combining those two things.
Okay. And we did promise you, dear listener, a short episode, and I know Tim has some places to run. So we'll deliver a short episode, but we've got some fun ones for the road. Because I found you through the Human Legion universe, this will be sort of themed for that. If you could live in that space that is the Human Legion world where we find them in Marine Cadet, would you?
No.
Why not?
It's not a nice place to be. It's the nature of that's certainly the start of those books, that the humans are not valued as individuals. The human life is not valued, not at all. It's not a place with retirement options. Put it like
that. That actually could be your theme. Retirement wasn't an option.
No.
That almost could be like, you've seen the Red series with the retired special agents that they're hunting them down.
No.
All right, is it American?
No, right.
I'll link it to you after the show, but that could be almost the theme of you don't get to retire, so they're now hunting you down when you're done. Anyway, all right. So if you lived in, obviously you don't want to because it's kind of a dark place, but if you had to and you lived in that universe, which of the many factions in that space would you side with?
I would side with the people left on Earth, actually, because they don't really know what's going on, and they have a life of relative luxury. But it's the people who are descendants of those who were offered as tribute to our alien overlords. They have the really hard lives. Yeah.
Speaking of hard lives, could you survive the training they were put through?
No. Well, to start with, I'm not a genetically engineered super soldier, so no, I definitely don't think I will. But there might be fun aspects to it, I suppose. Definitely, if you read the book, early parts. Yeah, it's not all bad.
All right. So as we bring this puppy to a close, Tim, how can listeners find you? And as usual, they will be linked in the show notes.
The easiest way to find me is to go and have a look at humanlegion.com.
All right. Are there any plans to broaden that to cover your other now non-human legion properties for your website?
Yeah, it is. I mean, having established a website, I thought, well, there's no point in having multiple ones. It just doesn't work. So, yes, I had redesigned the website actually in the summer. So all the various things I write in, you can find the right picture, click on the picture, and you can find details on those from the website.
Outstanding. So now, dear listener, you can find us on Twitter at twitter.com/SF_fantasy_show, Sierra Foxtrot _fantasy_show. You can email us at blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. We promise we answer the emails and we snarkily reply to the trolls. So have fun. You can find us on Facebook where all the shenanigans happen at facebook.com/groups/Blasters and Blades podcast. Again, /groups/Blasters and Blades podcast. I don't know, but you're sensing a theme here, people. We have our website at anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades. Again, anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades. You can support the show also on our website at anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades for a reoccurring monthly model, much like a Patreon platform style of subscription. You can make it reoccurring, or you can support the show in a one-time effort at buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Or and when you do that, please put in the comment section that it gives you that option that's for the podcast. I promise I will keep Doc Cisca and Nick Garber duly intoxicated. They will drink until their liver surrenders. And if they were here, they would tell you they weren't quitters. So yeah, people, it's an expensive hobby they have. All right. So thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For Nick Garber and Doc Cisca, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom.